Ryan, thank you so much for having me out to Kent State.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Wow. This thing started, I don't know if you remember, I was in Georgia. I was sitting in a parking lot. You and I had a conversation, and it was so good. And I remember saying to you, we need to record this and get all this good stuff on film and do a podcast. That way parents and players could hear what we talk about. So here we are, I guess, 9 months later, and I want to have almost the same kind of conversation. Yeah. So we're at Kent State. You are a young college coach. So we're going to talk about your playing career, but tell us a little bit about life as a college coach here at Kent State.
Yeah. It's something I've really enjoyed, the transition from playing to coaching. And, I think the life of coaching is just learning, as a player, you're doing a lot of stuff helping develop for yourself. And now I'm trying to give all of that back to my guys. And I think that's what I really enjoy about it.
Yeah.
It can be a hectic lifestyle and, there's time away and stuff like that. But, the competition, the time in the dugout, helping these guys, get better every single day. That's what I really enjoy about it. And, recruiting, everything. There is a lot that goes into it, but whenever you get down into like the nitty gritty of it, of practice today, like development, like that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where all of the hecticness of it, kind of you forget about that part.
Yeah.
You step out on the field, you get to worry about just the guys that day, and I love being able to see. I love seeing like the positives and the negatives in the guys, because I think you can learn from all of it.
Right.
And I sit there, I'm taking notes on everything and getting to just teach those guys, and then you watch like, hey, we had a couple of days of negatives, now what they learned, and then being able to turn that into a positive. I think that's one of the coolest things you can do.
So one of the things that I always remember most about you is you were such a student of the game. You loved it. So I mean, when I think about we're going to talk about your background, but how much you have to offer these young players, because you were such a student yourself. Where obviously you were a catcher, but are you working with the pitchers here? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your roles, baseball stuff, administration stuff, recruiting stuff here at Kent State.
So, I mean, I would say I probably turned into like a little bit of a super utility guy.
Yeah.
Like, I've always been with the catchers. Then obviously when I left the last time, I became a pitching coach, and then coming back, it's catchers, pitchers, and then I do help a little more on the offensive side this time around, but it's still more main focus catchers and pitchers. But I kind of have my hands dipped in a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But like my daily role, like I was just telling you before we started, like I help out with our scheduling and stuff like that, which, like I said, I think it's a cool thing. Finding some cool spots to have our guys go play and give our guys some challenges. And obviously always trying to find places in the South whenever we're here. But then like day to day, recruiting, it's a mix of kind of helping a little bit of everything, but like if we have a catcher, I'm going to have a lot of say in what goes on there. I help our pitching coach out. We're kind of going to see guys and stuff like that. Like me and him, if we have a guy local, me and him will go together. I'll do some trips and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But it really is a mix of everything. Just like my on-field role, and which I enjoy it that way, because I think as a player it was kind of always the same. I think as a catcher you feel like you're always kind of in the mix with everybody. You're all in with the pitching staff, you're all in with the offense, you have your catchers group, and it kind of stays that way for me now.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you're at Kent State, because you were at Kent State, as a volunteer there, and then you were at Gardner-Webb, and then you got a full-time job back here. So I really want for the listeners to hear a little bit about the school and life at Kent State, what you like, and even as a player, what your players like. Yeah. A little shameless plug for Kent State. So
yeah, I mean, what I love about it here is the winning culture, the championships. Anyone that goes out sees our field, you're going to see tons of championships, all the years, everything. It's been something. It's the history of the program. College World Series, regionals, winning the MAC, like that's what we talk about all the time. And it's something that can really be done here.
Right.
And for me, like that's something that I love. I want to be a part of something that is striving to be great and has a chance of being great every single day. And the coolest thing for me is being able to coach with other guys with similar backgrounds. Our head coach and our pitching coach both played in the big leagues. Our hitting coach played up to Double-A. And then my pro playing experience, like I think we can, like I said, I think it's really unique for our guys. I think we can help our guys a lot because of that background. I wouldn't say that means that we know everything, but I think it also gives those guys, like, we can give them little bits and pieces, like, hey, if you want to be a pro, like, this is what it takes. And then when you become a pro, this is what you got to do whenever you're there.
So that's, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's something I always wonder how it is different at different schools. All 4 of you guys played pro ball. So you know that for your guys, that's, you know, that's a dream of theirs. They, you know, most of them probably want to play. But I've heard that some schools, they don't want to talk anything about pro ball. Like, you know, you're here, we're talking about winning here. But how do you guys handle that? Like, do you have conversations with guys about the next level? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we talk about, obviously we're always talking about winning and stuff, but at the same time, a lot of our pro guys come back here in the fall and work out, throwing bullpens and stuff like that, hitting. It's a normal thing. They see our guys all the time, and our guys see what they're doing, and we're talking to them like, hey, like, these are what the guys in the past did here. This is what helped them get the pro ball, and we're always having those conversations. And like, we're definitely not afraid to talk about it. We talk about it in pre-practice meetings. We talk about it post-practice, like everything like that. It's always, we have to win here, and we want to win, but there is more than just that, and we're trying to help those guys do that.
Yeah, so I mean, that would be important to me as a player if I didn't get to play pro ball, but if I would have had a shot, I would want a coach to understand that's part of my dream too, you know, and I'm going to need help to get there. So that's good to know that the culture supports that here. And your pitching coach, Berkey, how long has he been here?
This is season number 28.
28, yeah. And how about your head coach? He's been here.
This is his 11th season.
11. So you got a lot of stability here. You know, that's fantastic. Side note, when you were playing for Penn State, I'm pretty sure there was a really good lefty here at Kent State. Was
Eric Lauer.
Eric Lauer.
Yeah, he actually just signed with the Pirates like 2 days ago. He's a free agent. So
has he ever been to the bigs?
Yeah, he's pitched in the big leagues. He's pitched in the big leagues for like 4 years.
Is that right?
He's a really good pro career and stuff. And so yeah.
You remember? Did you pitch, or was that Liberty? I think I saw Zach and Kent State. You guys didn't play against him, did you?
No, because we played them at midweeks. So he was obviously starting on Friday nights for them.
Yeah.
But I do remember we played him on a Tuesday. He was throwing his bullpen pregame, and I remember always hearing about him and stuff like that. And you know, he was a special player here.
I remember that. He was very good. Well, you've had a lot of amazing players here at Kent State, so fantastic. Well, let's switch gears. Let's go all the way back to the young Ryan Sloniger, the kid, well, even before I met you at, I think, 14 years old. But you grew up in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, home of Punxsutawney Phil, right? Was that a big tradition in your family?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it still is. Like, my mom loves to go. Now my wife, Alyssa, she loves to go as well. She went home this past year for it. It definitely is. Like, obviously, it's a cool thing for my town. You know, people coming back and stuff like that. And it is, I enjoy being able to talk to people, and they're like, tell them where I'm from, and they're like, oh, that's where Punxsutawney. Like, not a ton of people have come from a place that people actually know where it is or what it is.
Do you? This is probably the worst question to ask you, but Groundhog Day, like how many times have you watched it?
Oh yeah, I've watched it.
Is it similar to that at all?
I think the funniest thing is they came to shoot the movie in Punxsy, and then they said it didn't have the right scenery, so they went and shot it in a small town in Illinois.
Oh my gosh!
And for anyone that has been to Punxsutawney, Gobbler's Knob is in the middle of the woods. In the movie Groundhog Day, it's right downtown. And I always think that's the funniest thing, but the movie's good.
Well, you would know better than just about anybody. Now, a little trivia for all the listeners out there. There were 3 professional catchers out of one little town, you being one of them. And you want to talk about those other 2 guys? Because you probably know them.
Devin Mizuraco and Sarge Mizurok. You know, Devin's an assistant coach at Pitt. And so he's obviously stayed in the game since being done playing. And I think I will say, you know, a little plug to him. Like, I really appreciate it. He's been really helpful to me, both in my playing career, coaching now. Like, we've stayed in really good contact and talk honestly probably every week or every other week. Like, it's been cool to, you know, keep in touch and also be able to learn from him too.
The baseball fraternity. Wow. And I mean, Devin, I saw Devin play in high school. He made it to the big leagues. Sarge, I played against him. He was like a legend. I was in 9th grade when he was a senior, but I don't know what the odds are, but 3 catchers from a tiny little town in Pennsylvania, it's got to be It's got to be a record.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. Well, let's talk about you as a young player, because we got people watching this that are either parents, and we're going to talk about your parents, and young players. So tell us a little bit about Ryan Sloniger as a little leaguer, young player. Yeah. What were you all about at that age?
Yeah. When I was a kid, like, I grew up, I just loved the game. Grew up watching baseball. Grew up watching my dad play. My dad played slow pitch softball at that time when I was a young kid. And I always remember, like, being at the field, stuff like that. And then I always wanted to have him take me to the field then. And just, like, I've loved being on the field every day. And that's what it always was. And when I was young, it was the same way. And, when I was young, I played a bunch of different positions. Played shortstop, pitched, caught a little bit, played center field every once in a while. And I think, like, I always enjoyed those experiences because it taught me at a young age just to play baseball. And my town, as you know, like, baseball's a really big thing in my town. And that helped me a lot because it always felt like it mattered even when I was young.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it is that way there. And, so I loved watching the game. Like, Brian Giles was my favorite player when I was a kid, left-handed hitter. And I always said, like, I want to be like that guy. Yeah. And, he hit a ton of homers, left-handed hitter, played really hard. And I always tried to do that when I was a young kid. Him and Jack Wilson, and I always loved how hard Jack Wilson played. And, growing up being a Pirates fan. Yeah. And so, like, I would watch those guys. I'm like, okay, like, those guys play really hard. I want to do the same. And I had a blast playing the game at a young age, and it just let me really fall in love. And, I really loved playing the game, but I think I've become, like, I always was a really big fan too. Yeah. And that helped me. Yeah. Because I always wanted to watch it, which allowed me to learn.
So the interesting thing to me about that, because I'm around a lot of kids, you stand out as a kid who loved baseball just about more than anybody I've ever met. Okay. And I'm not knocking other players. I'm just saying, like, the passion was in you. But do you think where did that come from? Because, was your dad only into baseball, or, like, where do you think that passion came from?
Yeah, my family, like, is big sports fans. Like, obviously my dad, he's just likes all sports, watches sports. Yeah. But he always had a passion for baseball. And then, like, he would talk baseball all the time. We'd always have a game. Every night we had a Pirates game on. Whether we were watching it or not, like, it was on the TV. Gotcha. You're walking by, you're hearing it. I would honestly, and it's something that, like, people that are close to me, like, when I would fall asleep as a kid, I had a little radio, and I would sneak it into my room, and I'd put it under the pillow and listen to the end of the Pirates games. And it was just something, like, I always enjoyed knowing what was going on and learning and hearing them talk about the game. And, so, like, my family, it was a big deal to them. Yeah. So, like, at a young age, like, that always, for me, baseball, we're huge Steelers fans, like, all that stuff. Like, it was all we ever talked about. Right. My mom probably got tired of it every once in a while because all that was ever on the TV was sports. Yeah. But, for me, like, always getting to talk about it and see it, it just made it to where, like, this is what I really care about. I didn't care to watch anything else or hear about anything else. So it was a real sports family. Yeah. Which obviously I know your family, and I've seen even hockey. You guys are super into the Penguins and stuff too. But let's pivot slightly and talk about your parents in relative to you as a player, because you and I have seen the craziness out there of parents, and I'm not here to knock all parents, but there's some parents that really are getting it wrong, and they're getting a bad rap, probably deservingly so. But your parents, knowing them, I would put them in the other class. They were exemplary parents. But talk to me as the son of parents. What were they like for you as an athlete? Yeah, I tell them all the time, thank you, and I really couldn't appreciate them. And, like, it's a special experience for me, like, because I know what they sacrificed. Yeah, and I know, as you know, like, it is a lot to do that lifestyle as a young player, trying to get to the next level, and even once you get to the next level, then you're still trying to get to the next spot. And I think the amount that they gave up to allow me to do that will always mean the world to me. And I think one of the coolest things, my dad, like, we would always talk baseball, and he coached me the whole time growing up. But as I got older and really started to play at higher levels, like in travel ball and stuff like that, like, he was there to help me. Yeah. It wasn't to, like, tell me, hey, you went 0 for 4 with 4 punch outs today, and, like, you're going to walk home. Like, it wasn't like that. And it was, hey, you went 0 for 4 with 4 punch outs today, let's talk about your at-bats. Like, what do you think happened? that 0-1 pitch that you took that was a hittable pitch, like, why did you take that? And we would always talk about it and help me learn. And he also, like, I think what made it really special was they understood if I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it makes it a lot easier that way, because for anyone as a player, there's some days you do want to talk about it and learn some, and some days you just want to wash it away and go to the next day.
So they didn't force it on you.
No, like
it happened naturally.
Yeah, like I got in the car after the game, and you know, sometimes they'd be like, "Hey, you want to talk about it or not?" Like, and I thought that was, honestly, that question was the best start to anything, because it allowed, like, hey, we're going to talk about it or we're not. If I don't want to talk about it, we're going to go get dinner. Yeah, we're going to go do our thing and worry about some other things.
Right.
And I think that helped me as a player continue to enjoy showing up every day. I was never worried about getting in the car after the game, and I think some kids are, because they don't want to have those conversations. And I think it's really hard to experience that if it isn't that way.
Yeah, I as a dad had to learn that a little bit the hard way with Christian, where I would want to talk so much.
Yeah.
And sometimes I learned I couldn't force it. He wasn't a big talker in the first place. But, you know, so for parents listening, you know, you never lost the love of the game. You know, all the way through until the end of your career, you were bright-eyed about playing baseball. And I credit your parents for that, because they kept it fun. Yeah. But I don't know the stat, but it's some ridiculous stat of the drop-off of kids playing baseball at like 13 and 14 years old. And I'm convinced that a lot of it is parents making it not fun for their players. So I witnessed your mom and dad just being amazing, you know, and your sister, you know, they were just all big fans. And, you know, the other thing, one more kudos to your parents, is they were not ever the parents bragging about their kid, ever. As the director of the program, you know, I get cornered sometimes by parents telling me how great. I used to say, just stop telling me how great your kid is. I already know how great he is. But your parents never did that. You know, you were a humble kid. Did they talk to you about humility and gratitude? You said respect.
Yeah, all the time. Because I think, like, you know, it doesn't matter how good or bad you are. At the end of the day, like, I always believed, you know, I was lucky enough to even be in that situation. And they made sure that because it was true, like, not everybody could be in that situation. And